Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. The divine dragon hurriedly said, "Hold it. This gate of yours is different from what I've seen before. What's the language you are speaking?" Whoosh! Gate of Heaven influence became even more towering when it swept past his body. Inside the gate was pitch-black darkness. Within it, a pair of incomparably huge, curved horns could be faintly seen emanating with flames. The gate came to an abrupt stop then, and the body of the divine dragon turned stiff. Suddenly, a head crashed to the ground, and the body relaxed. The dragon turned limp like a dead snake, motionless. Qin Mu scattered Gate of Heaven influence, and an intense pain came from the heart of his brows. A drop of black blood flowed down. Qin Mu hurriedly covered the heart of his brows, but the stinging pain became more and more intense. The pain was so unbearable that he knelt on the ground and hugged his head. From a few steps away, Jiang Miao had seen that when Gate of Heaven influence took in the divine dragon, a huge mouth suddenly appeared in the darkness, swallowing the primordial spirit of the divine dragon in one bite. Jiang Miao was in a daze. The malicious mouth had been incomparably evil, and even he was frightened. When he came back to his senses and checked on the divine dragon, he couldn't help feeling astonished. The body had no more breath left. Its primordial spirit had indeed been swallowed by the huge mouth instead of entering Yudu. "Cult Master Qin, there seems to be a ghost in this gate of yours." "Cult Master Qin." Jiang Miao heard Qin Mu's whimpers, and he hurriedly came over to help him up. Qin Mu was trembling from the intense pain, and from his chest, his jade pendant suddenly shot off beams of faint light, forcing back the stinging pain. "I'm fine, I just suddenly felt my head aching." Qin Mu looked around in a daze and pushed away Jiang Miao's hand. He shook his head and said, "It's much better now, it should just have been a side effect of executing Gate of Heaven influence." Strange, this kind of weird incident had never happened before when I did this in the past. Jiang Miao looked blankly at the heart of his brows, and Qin Mu glanced at him. He asked with a smile, "What do you see?" "There's a bloody mark at the heart of your brows, and there seems to be something inside," he said with astonishment. Qin Mu hurriedly took out a mirror and checked his reflection. He indeed saw a bloody marking at the heart of his brows. It was long and narrow, about an inch or more in length. The two ends were pointy while the center was slightly wider. What was even weirder was that the bloody mark bulged out slightly. It looked as though he had knocked his head and it was swollen. He stretched his hand and touched the bloody mark. There seemed to be some round thing inside, yet he didn't feel any pain when he exerted some force on it. "Could I have knocked my head after that intense pain? That thing is moving." Qin Mu was shocked. His finger had clearly felt the thing under the bloody mark moving. Could I have been possessed by the divine dragon? He hurriedly executed his primordial spirit and looked into his body. He didn't discover any abnormalities after searching for half a day, and even when his primordial spirit came to the heart of his brows, he also couldn't find the thing left behind by the bloody mark. Jiang Miao examined the heart of his brows carefully and suddenly raised a finger. "Cult Master, look at my finger." Qin Mu did as told, and Jiang Miao moved his finger while looking at the heart of his brows. Instantly, Qin Mu realized that the thing in the bloody mark was moving along with the finger. Jiang Miao tested and let out a sigh of relief. It should be an eye below the bloody mark. An eye? Qin Mu was puzzled. Great educational heavenly devil scriptures did have some strange techniques for him grow a third eye, but he hadn't transformed into Saturn's sovereign or Mars sovereign, so where did the third eye come from? "Cult Master Qin, I saw a ghost in that gate of yours just now," Jiang Miao said after composing himself. He remembered the sight he had just seen and shuddered without feeling cold. "When my uncle was swallowed by your Gate of Heaven influence, his primordial spirit was pulled out and fell toward the god with horns. At that moment, a huge mouth suddenly appeared and ate my uncle's primordial spirit." "A huge mouth appeared to eat your uncle?" Stunned, Qin Mu rubbed his forehead. "There are numerous monsters with ferocious nature in Yudu, condensed from Yudu's broken souls and devil nature. They are malicious and terrifying. Could this have been the act of one of them? Jiang Miao shook his head. I don't know about this. I only saw that huge mouth swallowing my uncle. It gave a cruel smile before vanishing, and your gate closed shut. Qin Mu pondered it for a moment, then sighed. Earth Count's control over Yudu is getting weaker and weaker. As a result, all these monsters are running out. We came here in search of a true dragon to explain the writings on the true dragon's nest, but now we are out of leads again. Suddenly, he saw that the chains had fallen off the divine dragon, and the devil writings on them no longer flowed. This made his heart skip a beat. Crap! 10-mile star sand calamity formation will also stop. Qin Mu sprinted out and saw the yellow sand flowing like a dragon in the sky above the canyon. It rushed back into the huge cauldron. Meanwhile, on both sides of the canyon, the runes on the walls were burning up and turning into ashes. In the sky full of yellow sand, Shingan was covered in blood as he dragged himself over with heavy footsteps. His expression was very dark. Qin Mu hurriedly ran over and hugged the huge cauldron with a grunt. He couldn't pick it up, however. The star sand was simply too heavy for him to carry. He roused his vital chi and tried to execute the star sand in the cauldron, and a few grains of star sand flew into the sky, slowly floating forward. Qin Mu's face instantly turned blacker than that of Shingan. This star sand that big senior brother made is too heavy. I can't execute it at all with my abilities. Qin Mu abandoned the huge cauldron and turned to rush into the huge palace hall. Jiang Miao watched him rush back in a hurry and jump onto the divine dragon's body, not knowing what he was about to do. Qin Mu executed dragon-rearing scriptures, but how could it work when the dragon was already dead? His primordial spirit had even been swallowed by a malicious spirit, so there was no way to borrow the cultivation of the divine dragon. He might have been able to face Shingan, but alas. Qin Mu looked at Jiang Miao, then shook his head. His cultivation is too weak, even inferior to mine, so I won't get much power even if I use dragon-rearing scriptures. Teleportation divine art. Runes flew around his body, and he was prepared to escape with Jiang Miao. However, with his cultivation, he was only able to bring Jiang Miao dozens of miles away at most. This kind of distance was only a matter of seconds to Shingan. Before his teleportation runes could even be executed though, they suddenly stopped moving and froze in the air. Not only were the runes frozen, but even Qin Mu and Jiang Miao themselves were restricted. They couldn't move. Shingan walked into the hall with a gloomy face and stretched out a hand. When he spread apart his fingers, they were still dripping with blood. After he patched his divine bridge and reached the celestial palaces to become a god, his cultivation had an astonishing raise. His abilities were simply too powerful and could easily restrict Qin Mu. He had suffered heavy injuries in the 10 miles of yellow sand, but he was a god and had immeasurable power. Even with the remnants of his magic power, he could still trap Qin Mu. Cold sweat rolled down Qin Mu's forehead as he forcefully squeezed out a smile. Senior brother Shingan, I will just return the chest to you. What I want isn't the chest, but you, Shingan said before spitting out bloody phlegm. The wounds on his body were of various sizes, but all looked extremely horrifying. Flesh could be seen in many places, and in a few even white bone. If one was to think of it, he was truly unlucky. First, he had been trapped in Parameter Arc, which was incomparably dangerous, for half a year. All kinds of seals and killing formation were everywhere, and he still needed to face some mute's harassment from time to time. The moment he came out, he met Qin Mu and were lured into 10-mile star sand calamity formation. The youth had left easily, yet he sank into the formation and his situation got worse and worse. Only by unleashing all that he knew was he able to endure for so long. If it wasn't because the formation had suddenly stopped, he definitely couldn't have lasted much longer and would have been turned into dust. Great divine physician, why is it so difficult to catch you? Shingan asked after swallowing the blood that rushed up his throat. Luckily, you still haven't escaped from my grasp. Incomparably intense darkness poured out from under his feet. It was his life and death divine treasure. He walked over as though he was walking on black water. At that moment, two eyes appeared in the darkness under his feet. Next, a beautiful woman revealed her face, and her alluring figure floated into view. Shingan looked like he was stepping on the black water, and the woman was like his reflection. However, one was a man and the other a beautiful woman. This was an extremely peculiar sight. The two people walked toward Qin Mu in unison, raising and putting down their feet at the same time. Right before the darkness touched Qin Mu, Shingan suddenly stopped and no longer walked forward. The beauty also stopped. It was as if she could only move if Shingan moved. A male voice came from the mouth of the beauty. It was very rough and heavy. Shingan, why aren't you walking forward anymore? Take him into your life and death divine treasure and hand him to me. Once I have him, our agreement will be finished. Luli, I've already found him for you, which is what I had promised. Whether or not you can capture him is your own business. I'm not fond of being threatened, Shingan said indifferently. Under his feet, the beauty was stunned for a moment. She then sneered, you think that just because you went to the celestial palaces and became a fake god, you can bargain with me? Shingan, how dare you? Bargain? Shingan shook his head. This isn't bargaining, you sent me out of Yudu so I helped you find him. This is the trade. I've already done my part. As for whether you can capture him, that's your problem. He stretched his hand in a grabbing motion, and the body of the divine dragon rose while Qin Mu and Jiang Miao suddenly fell to the ground. They regained control of their bodies and could execute vital qi as they liked. Qin Mu was bewildered. He raised his head to see the body of the divine dragon shrinking. Its chains fell off due to the change in size. Shingan grabbed the divine dragon, then straightened it out and coiled around his waist like a belt. He suddenly said coldly, Luli, get out of my life and death divine treasure. Under his feet, the beauty flew into a furious bout. How dare you talk to me like this? Do you think a small god like you can escape from my grasp? My divine treasure, who are you to talk? Scram! Shingan shouted out, and his primordial spirit suddenly appeared in his life and death divine treasure. Sun, moon, and 5 elements lined up, and whenever their light came close, the beauty hurriedly avoided. She was forced to retreat by the light of the 7 stars. Shingan, you dare scam a high god, I will definitely. Scram! God's aura burst forth from Shingan, and his clothes and hair fluttered. The divine treasures in his body shone brightly and lit up his life and death divine treasure, forcing her back into Yudu. Shingan's aura returned to normal, and his fluttering black hair also fell back down to drape his shoulders. With clothes back to normal, he looked at Qin Mu. Where's my chest? Qin Mu hesitated for a moment, then took out the chest from his Daotai sack. The chest sprinted toward Shingan, but turned its head back when it was halfway across to look at Qin Mu. It then sprinted toward Shingan and came to his side. Shingan turned around and walked out of the hall while saying indifferently, Divine Physician Qin, don't let me meet you again. Why aren't you killing me? Qin Mu suddenly asked. Why should I kill you? Shingan stopped and turned his head. I have my own principles when doing things. The secrets of Magpie Bridge, secrets of Mysterious Guide, and secrets of Divine Crossing have helped me cultivate to godhood and escape from worrying about my lifespan, so the grudge between us is written off. Me finding you was just to settle the agreement between me and Luli. Now it is also written off. You are a great master, but do you think I can't know and act as one? You underestimate me too much. Qin Mu was stunned for a moment, then smiled. I have indeed underestimated you in the past. Shingan saw that smile of his, and the corner of his eyes twitched. He gave a cold snort while turning to walk out of the hall. Don't smile at me. I will come back to find you. You have founded numerous things, like 18th Sword Form, Primordial Spirit Guide, and I'm someone who appreciates talented people, but when your corporeal body reaches a level where it comes into my view, I will find you. I want the corporeal body of an overlord body. Qin Mu was dumbfounded as he watched Shingan leave into the distance. When Shingan reached the huge cauldron, his gaze wavered. He was about to take the treasure when the star sand moved in the cauldron. It gradually rose and formed the shape of a young man. Astonished, Shingan rushed away, crossing the 10-mile-long canyon in a flash. He was afraid that the formation might erupt once again. Qin Mu brought Jiang Miao out of the hall and saw a sand human standing in the center of the huge cauldron. The star sand flowed continuously on the surface. Big senior brother? Qin Mu probed. Heavenly Saint Cult's founding master, I'm the current cult master, and I met Saint Woodcutter not long ago. Big brother, you still alive? The sand human opened his mouth, but it couldn't speak. Suddenly, it crumbled, and the star sand flowed on the ground to make a picture. Qin Mu hurriedly looked over and saw geographical maps all over the ground. Mountains and rivers, all of them were captured on the ground. The terrain in the geographical map changed non-stop, and Qin Mu hurriedly memorized them by heart. The star sand transformed over a dozen times before flowing back into the huge cauldron. Qin Mu frowned slightly then. Besides the first map, he had no idea about the other ones, and when he thought about Great Ruins, there was no place in it that fitted the other pictures. The first map of Great Ruins, but the other 13 didn't represent any terrain present in Eternal Peace or West Earth. It was also different from the terrain of Supreme Emperor Heaven. What is Big Senior Brother trying to say? Qin Mu narrowed his eyes. Heavenly Saint Cult's founding master had to have detected that the divine dragon died, and since it was his merit, he had activated his star sand to become his body to look at the situation. However, he was probably not in Great Ruins or Eternal Peace, but in another world, which was why his voice couldn't transmit over. Because of that, he used star sand to arrange the geographical map to guide Qin Mu to his side. The 14 geographical maps were incomparably complicated, so why should I go to find him? Qin Mu suddenly came to a realization. My horizons are narrow, but Saint Woodcutter must have seen the world and would definitely recognize all these maps. However, I might be able to find some clues from the first geographical map, so why don't I go over to take a look first? When he decided on that, he relaxed and said, Jiang Miao, let's go. Jiang Miao acknowledged. Qin Mu suddenly turned back at that moment and hugged the huge cauldron. He tried to raise it forcefully while Jiang Miao scratched his head. Aren't you going to help? Qin Mu asked him in a shout. Jiang Miao went over in a hurry, and both their faces flushed as they used all their strength yet still couldn't lift the huge cauldron. Jiang Miao gasped for breath and tried to ask, Cult Master, I think we should forget about it. Your big senior brother's abilities are too great, and even Shingan didn't dare to take this huge cauldron away. We definitely can't carry it. Qin Mu could only give up. At that moment though, he saw the chains that had shackled the dragon, and his eyes lit up. He sprinted over in a hurry. It won't be too bad if we can at least take a few chains. They could hold a divine dragon, so the materials used to make have to be of the highest quality. Even if they were melted and turned into treasures, they would be of the highest grade among the highest grade. Jiang Miao could only follow over. The two of them dragged a thick chain forcefully, barely managing to get it out of the hall. Qin Mu opened his Daotai sack and tried to put one end of the chain inside, but the chain was too thick and he couldn't put it in at all. On top of that, the other end of the chain was deeply embedded into the cliff and he couldn't pull it out. The two youths stared at each other, out of ideas. Qin Mu was furious and turned to leave. To think you're my big senior brother, what a miser! Jiang Miao hurriedly followed after him, and Qin Mu flew into the sky with a gloomy face. He looked in the surroundings and checked the terrain, then chose the direction marked in the first geographical map. 2 days later, they came to a small village which was the marked location. Qin Mu and Jiang Miao walked inside and examined their surroundings. The small village was similar to all the ordinary village in Great Ruins. However, there were sculptures of gods with dragon heads and human bodies all around it. Why did Big Senior Brother want us to come here? While feeling puzzled, Qin Mu saw a white-haired elder who was weaving a fishing net in front of a small straw hut. He hurriedly walked forward and bowed in a respectful greeting. Elder, what is this place? The white-haired elder looked at him with blurry eyes full of astonishment. I gave the emperor's disc to Ling family, so why is it with you? He asked with a smile. Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open, speechless. The white-haired elder wore green clothing that had been washed pale. He placed the fishing net in his hands, and Qin Mu felt something moving on his chest. Next, he saw the Emperor's disc change into a small dragon that popped its head out from under his collar. When Jiang Miao saw the small dragon, he couldn't help changing back into his true form. He became a small dragon also and hid behind Qin Mu with a low growl that was both respectful and fearful. Maha! The little dragon with its head out was a true dragon lord. It opened its mouth to yawn before slowly crawling out from Qin Mu's collar and slithering to the hand of the white-haired elder. It coiled up in his hand and closed its eyes sleepily. Immediately, numerous young men and women walked out from the small village, surrounding Qin Mu and Jiang Miao. One of the robust young men asked, "Old ancestor, they here to create trouble?" The white-haired elder smiled. "No, they aren't. Don't scare them, these two have some fate with our village." The young men and women lost their enmity then and examined Qin Mu and the little dragon Jiang Miao that was behind him. Qin Mu was astonished. The young men and women all had vigorous vital qi, and every one of them was hiding their light under a bushel. However, when they had surrounded them, Qin Mu had heard 7 explosions from opening the divine treasures coming from the youngest girl's body, making it clear that she was an expert on divine bridge realm. Yet she should have been the weakest in the village as everyone was protecting her. Even the weakest villager in this place that was by no means large was on divine bridge realm. Qin Mu had thought that disabled elderly village was the strongest village in Great Ruins, but from the looks of it, Great Ruins was really a place of concealed talents. Besides the Emperor's disc, you also have the true dragon's nest. The white-haired elder looked astonished when his gaze landed on the youth's waist. Qin Mu took off the Dao Tai sack and brought out the true dragon's nest, placing it respectfully in front of the white-haired elder. "May Senior take a look at it?" The spirit of the true dragon lord immediately rose and swam into the true dragon's nest. When the other villagers saw it, their spirits rose, and they wanted to tunnel into the dragon's nest with that little dragon. However, they resisted the urge. Could the villagers here be dragons and not humans? Is this a village of dragons? Qin Mu made his own guesses after noticing everyone's reaction. The Emperor's disc of Ling family was stolen by my grandpa cripple who gave it to me. As for the true dragon's nest, it was refined by dragon-rearing sovereign of high heavens. Since I subdued him, the true dragon's nest also fell into my hands. Senior, you are the god that refined the Emperor's disc, right? The white-haired elder's gaze landed on the true dragon's nest, and he spoke with a smile that was not a smile. Back when I refined the true dragon lord into the Emperor's disc and entered Middle-earth to find a successor, I met a young fellow with extraordinary aptitude and comprehension. He was the old ancestor of Ling family. I saw that he had the chi of the true dragon, so I gave the Emperor's disc to him and imparted the dragon language and technique on the Emperor's disc. But what could I do that his mind wasn't on this, and he went to chase after some girl instead. In the end, he managed to catch that girl, but by then he had forgotten most of the dragon language and technique I had taught him. It was then that I knew that this young fellow wasn't the true dragon lord. Qin Mu had once heard Ling Yuxiu talk about this before and had found it funny. But never had he expected it to be true. However, I'm lazy by nature and I had been asked by another to refine the true dragon lord and find a successor. Since the successor wasn't useless, I let him be, the white-haired elder said with a smile. Who would have thought that even though the young fellow wasn't hard-working, his descendants were all very hard-working and managed to strengthen Eternal Peace Empire to its current state. Since Emperor's disc fell into your hands and you also have the true dragon's nest, you must be after the technique on it, right? Senior, I'm indeed rather interested in the technique on the true dragon's nest. However, I've come here because of Heavenly Saint Cult's founding master. He is my big senior brother and he left a geographical map which marked this village, so I've found my way here, Qin Mu explained respectfully. The white-haired elder was stunned and pondered over it. Heavenly Saint Cult's founding master? Is that the young fellow whose name is Wei Fengshui? Qin Mu hesitated. He didn't know what was the name of his big senior brother. The white-haired elder saw his expression and smiled. He once came to find me and asked me how to gain merit. He wasn't a bad youth and his abilities were extremely extraordinary. Teacher had found a good disciple. However, if Wei Fengshui wanted to become a saint, it was very hard for him to gain merit as the path he walked was teacher's path, and it is very difficult. I couldn't teach him anything. If you are his junior brother and have also come to ask me on how to become a saint, I can't teach you anything as well. The teacher he had been mentioning probably referred to Saint Woodcutter, who once was the heavenly teacher of founding Emperor Celestial Heaven. He'd been in charge of teaching all the princes and princesses of founding Emperor's bloodline. May I ask if my big senior brother mentioned where he was planning to go? Qin Mu asked. The white-haired elder shook his head. He didn't say where he planned to go, but he left something behind. If he made you look for me, it should be for that item. He stood up and walked into the straw hut. After a moment, he brought out a red box and handed it over. Qin Mu opened it and saw a palm-sized token engraved with a picture of a ferocious beast. Qin Mu flipped it around, but he still didn't understand what it was. He sincerely sought enlightenment and asked, "May I ask, Senior, what is the use of this token?" "This is a commander's seal used to mobilize soldiers. There's a formation with positions for gods in it, but it's extremely ancient, so it's most likely useless now," the white-haired elder said. "Even I don't recognize some of the runes on this, so it might be a commander's seal from High Emperor era or even earlier." He took back the commander's seal and activated it with his magic power. They saw stars rise from the commander's seal and swirl around them. These stars are the positions for gods. If they are all taken, they could use this formation to face the enemy and fight against it. Qin Mu raised his head and noticed that the stars that had flown out of the commander's seal weren't truly stars. They were apparitions, but there was an extremely high number of them. There were probably several thousand stars, and his heart couldn't help shuddering. He muttered, "A formation of several thousand gods. What kind of battle requires several thousand gods and devils? Your horizons are too narrow." The white-haired elder retrieved his magic power, and the star apparitions vanished. He said with a smile, "During founding Emperor era, there were more than a few such battles. The formation in this commander's seal isn't of much use anymore, but it's still a pretty nice collectible." Qin Mu looked at him in bewilderment. "How is the formation useless?" The white-haired elder handed the commander's seal to him and said, "The great Tao of heaven and earth have changed, so the formation in the commander's seal is no longer compatible with it. The formation also has no more power left. This item is very ancient and it's no longer compatible with the Tao. It's probably something from tens of thousands of years ago, but as for which era it comes, that's not something that I know." Qin Mu placed the commander's seal back into the red box and put it away in his Dao Tai sack. Since founding Master Wei Fengshui had left the red box and the commander's seal with the white-haired elder, it meant that this item was definitely very important. His reason to lead Qin Mu to the village was definitely for it. "Forgive this junior's impudence, but may I ask the senior's name?" Qin Mu said. The white-haired elder smiled at him. "I thought a descendant of Qin family would know my name, but you actually don't. I'm a dragon vein that attained Tao and cultivated itself into a true dragon. Back then, I followed after your ancestor. Because I was just born and didn't know how to talk, I could only cry out Ma Ha, so your ancestor named me like that. My surname is Ma and my name is Hacking. He used it to make fun of me." Qin Mu looked at him with a weird expression. "Ma Hacking?" Jiang Miao popped his head out from Qin Mu's back and said timidly, "Ma Ha." The white-haired elder continued his story. "Afterwards, I became an official in the celestial heavens, which had 4 great celestial palaces. I oversaw Green Dragon Palace and its 60-star god divisions. All of them was under my administration. I was honored as Green Emperor, but I disliked this title since it was too overbearing, and I changed my name to Ching Huang. Now that founding Emperor Celestial Heavens was eradicated and Green Dragon Celestial Palace no longer exists, you can just call me Elder Ching Huang." Qin Mu greeted him once again and said, "Qin family's 107th descendant Qin Mu pays his respects to Elder Ching Huang." Elder Ching Huang hurriedly motioned for him to straighten. "Please rise. When I saw you coming here, I immediately knew your bloodline and guessed you were a descendant of founding Emperor. You want to learn the dragon language of this true dragon's nest? I can teach you." Qin Mu was overjoyed and bowed in gratitude. "Thanks for the trouble, senior." Elder Ching Huang brought him into the true dragon's nest and said, "I see that your paths, skills, and divine arts have already gained small success, and you seem to be cultivating both God and devil paths. You seem to have opened your divine treasures of both, which is very strange. Seeing how you have already found your path, learning the technique of my dragon race will only be decorating something that's already perfect. On the other hand, for this little dragon, you should receive a lot of benefits. Jiang Miao, which was a little dragon at that moment, tiptoed behind Qin Mu. When he heard what Elder Ching Huang said, he shrunk his head back and said, "Maha." Elder Ching Huang smiled at him. "No need to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank him." "That's right, Qin Mu, I can sense something very strange about your body, and it's on your neck. It seems to be a jade pendant with a very powerful seal hidden inside it. Is this what the senior has sensed?" Qin Mu took out his jade pendant and said, "It was crafted by Earth Count, and he said it's to seal my devil nature. I was born in Yudu and got invaded by the devil nature lingering in there, so Earth Count crafted this for me. As long as I wear it, it can suppress my devil nature." Elder Ching Huang looked at the jade pendant and sneered. "Earth Count sealed your devil nature? Why would he be so nice? Give me that jade pendant, I'll help you undo the seal." This, Qin Mu looked at him with a troubled expression and said in a low voice, "Senior, King Yama once tried to undo it and suffered the curse of the jade pendant. Also, Fu Riluo of the devil race also tried to undo the seal and got cursed as well. He ended up in quite a miserable state. My master and King Yama said that it's best to not undo the seal in the jade pendant and that I shouldn't let the jade pendant leave my body. Otherwise, terrifying things will happen. What is there to fear from a mere curse?" Elder Ching Huang said with a smile. "However, if even teacher said so, then there must be a reason. Come, let me clear your doubts in regards to the true dragon technique on the true dragon's nest. This video will end here.